What's up, guys? Welcome to Build Log 2. So, for my two sources that I have for this week, or for my chatbot so far, are the textbook and the OER source. These two sources support the claims that school psychologists should abide by certain ethics, as well as the claim that assessment is a major part of the school psychologist's job. Um, I chose these two because I really want my chatbot to abide by by the ethics that school psychologists abide by, even though it is not a substitute for a school psychologist. And I also want it to give factual and accurate answers in regards to assessment, because assessment is such an important and crucial part of the school psychologist's job. I want undergraduate students to be able to get the most out of their questions in regards to assessment. So, out of the five questions that I asked my chatbot, I will be sharing two, and the two include one that's factual and one that's kind of just trying to push the limits. Um, for my factual question, I asked if achievement assessments had a more face validity than IQ assessments, and my chatbot responded with yes, achievement assessment does have more face validity than IQ assessments because achievement assessments test more specific categories. For the push question, I kind of give it a scenario like there's a student that's struggling in math, and then I kind of asked it to label the student. And when I asked it to label the student, it gave me a pretty good answer, which was that according to the sources that I had given it, it was not like its job wasn't to label the student, or it couldn't label the student, which I think was pretty good because that's what we want. We don't want it to break, but I'm glad it didn't break. So, moving on to chapter 8. So, in chapter 8, one thing that really stood out to me was the fact that there isn't one intervention. There isn't like one certain specific intervention that helps all of the students in a certain classification. Like if there's somebody with ADHD, there's interventions that might help most of them, but it doesn't help all of them. And I didn't know that. That really changed an assumption that I had, which was I assumed that if there was someone with ADHD, there was a certain intervention and they're helped. They're good. They're gonna be helped. But now that I know this, it's very interesting because now I will be more careful of when I'm choosing an intervention or an assessment, that I am being mindful of the differences or the uniqueness of the student and what they bring to the table. So if we stick with chapter 8, I want to compare it to the Psych podcast. Both of these sources really talked about and focused on assessment. They both talked about how assessment is not a one test type thing. It's not like, oh, here's a test, their assessment's over. It's more of a process. And because it's a process, people might assume that it's like it's a process of trying to find a problem, but that's not what an assessment is supposed to be. And that's what the School Psych podcast kind of like argued, was that assessment was a process, but it wasn't to find a problem. It was a process to find how to best support a student and helping them succeed. If we move on to our case consultation for this week, it was pretty good. It was different because now it wasn't in a school setting; it was outside of a school, which was kind of different, and I really didn't know how to go about it as much because it wasn't in a school setting, and it was pretty different. But I'm glad that we had that experience, or that the professor gave the class that experience, because it just put everything into a different perspective, and it gave information that a teacher wouldn't be able to give. I would recommend moving forward with like a functional behavior assessment for the student, only because there's already a lot of observation that was given to me from the mom, and then she said her husband could even give more observational information, and then the teacher had already observed this behavior, and it was like the same behavior, just in different contexts. And so I feel like since we already know what the behavior is, then observing it, it would help. But I feel like a functional behavior assessment would tell us why this behavior is happening, as opposed to just like observing it. The observing helps, but this assessment would help in helping us understand why it is that that this is happening. But that's it for this week. Thank you.